many of you use a computer here or at home? A lot of you. Now, you may tell your parents or teachers that you only use it for your education, but I know being able to socialize on the internet and express your opinions is a big part of your life. It's the same for people in Tunisia, the people in jail, that is. Expressing your opinion in any way about the government in Tunisia will land you in jail, even if your opinion is good. This is a direct violation of Article 19 of the Declaration of Human Rights, which states, "Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impact information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers." Issues that have been a violation of this article includes arbitrary arrest because of past offenses, citizens can be arrested or fired because of their political views, and the everyday life of Tunisians is being attacked by their inability to fully access the technology that is available. Tunisia was part of the Turkish Ottoman Empire from the 16th century to 1881. Then, Tunisia became a French protectorate until 1956 when it gained its independence. Since its independence, Tunisia has had a human rights issue concerning a break in Article 19. This right is violated as Tunisian bloggers are rapidly being arrested and held for far longer than their so-called crimes deserve. Bloggers are primarily at risk as the government is very closely monitoring media online. This human right has not only been visibly broken in modern times, but also in the past. For example, Afif Abruzzi writes, "Former Tunisian President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali was an enemy to freedom of speech. With its heavy tactics, his regime attempted to silence all dissidents." The former president from 1987 to 2011 set up Tunisia to be a repressed country where people were silenced by the regime through strict laws that reached into the social lives of their citizens. In the United States, we have the freedom of speech no matter if it comes directly from our mouths or through a keyboard. In Tunisia, the citizens are not given this right. They are refused the rights that have been so-called given to them just from being alive and a human. If these people are denied their rights, then they are being denied as a fellow person. A second example that shows a violation of the right to free speech is the human rights militants, that is the Tunisian League for the Defense of the Rights of Man, the members of the General Union of Students of Tunisia. Every opposition or every thought of opposition is repressed at present in Tunisia. All this is done in the framework of the desire of Ben Ali to preserve his personal power, to preserve the dictatorship of his party. The government worked to oppress every single form of self-expression and outside contact. Human rights activists were not just discouraged from sharing their views with the rest of the world, but forced to stop sharing by the strict consequences that surround actions that should not be illegal. The fact that Tunisians were forced to face this kind of abuse for over 30 years with their so-called president is ridiculous. The people of Tunisia deserve the same rights as people in America, those that are stated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The government of Tunisia has set up a system in order to control its citizens through the oppression of media and the curtailed use of it. Hama Hamani says of the last empire's regime, "One can sum up the present regime as a fascist regime, a dictatorial regime, which does not leave any opening for the freedom to the Tunisian people." The government has spared no expense in making sure that absolutely no one is safe with their own thoughts in this country, acting as a gang and arbitrarily arresting those who may not have even committed a crime. The government dealt with these so-called criminals in completely unethical ways. The criminals that are spoken of are not even guilty of something that would be considered a crime in a free country. They are tortured and killed for writing a blog post about their country. An example of arbitrary arrests is security officials vigorously monitor email, conduct surveillance of internet cafes, and block websites that publish information critical of the government. In April 2004, after a trial described as deeply flawed by human rights groups, 9 young Tunisians were sentenced to between 19 and 26 years in prisons for planning a terrorist attack after they allegedly viewed terrorist websites at an internet cafe in Zarzis. This surveillance of media is a blatant misuse of power being used simply to keep a controlling hand over the minds and actions of the people. If I searched up the term ISIS, should I be expected to spend my 41st birthday in prison? That would seem preposterous, and yet that is what happened to those 9 young Tunisians. Being curious about the world and wanting to find their place in it is not tolerated in Tunisia. Think of how often you talk to your friends through social media and how you take for granted the miles of free speech you have every time you type out the words, "Thanks, Obama." This is how it could be in Tunisia, a whole country allowed to express their ideals and shape their government to what suits them. When people have the ability to be the revolution, to be the change, they have the ability to shape the world. Whoever controls the media controls the mind. We have the power to let the Tunisian people control their own media and by extent finally control their own mind. Through the obstruction of use of media, the citizens of Tunisia have seen social and cultural changes as seen in how they seek out each other and their freedom of speech through media. The successful attempts to curtailing of expression through media has not stopped people from seeking out ways to be a part of it. Approximately 44% of the population had internet access in 2013. More people than ever use social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter during the year, and a growing number of online services and websites are contributing to the news and information environment. In an attempt to take away the possibility of self-expression or some form of freedom, the Tunisian government has marked up the price of the tools needed for this, making internet and telephones ridiculously expensive, discouraging people from looking for an outlet for their views and self-expression. This is similar to how cigarettes are steadily getting more expensive in the US. However, instead of doing this to promote a healthy lifestyle, it is used to tighten the grip of the government around the creativity and voices of the Tunisian population. Another example of the social attitude being changed by this, is how the Tunisian government wants to seem as if it is conforming to the needs of the people, but is instead continuing with the controversial acts that it has been committing. This is seen in the Freedom House article. The ANC, the African National Congress, announced in 2012 that the defamation would not be criminalized, but journalists continue to face defamation charges for their reporting in 2013. This law was put in place in order to sedate the people of Tunisia and to try to convince them that nothing is wrong, when in reality, the government is breaking its own rules in order to achieve its own gross goals. This specific human right has developed enormously since 1948, as it has seen the opinionated views of two presidents. Both these presidents have wished to diminish the rights of their people by controlling what they can see and learn through the media. As Americans with our rights secured, it is our job to help other people when they are in need. The Tunisian people are in need. Freedom House describes Tunisians' internet freedom as partly free. It is a crime to stand by and watch another country slip by as partly free. In Tunisia, Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has been a problem ever since its independence from France in 1956. Its people have faced oppression by the state and are regularly denied their basic human rights. One solution to this problem is to implement the Japanese policy on freedom of speech and expression. This would immediately fix the human rights issues in Tunisia by giving the citizens their basic human rights. A second solution would be to re-elect their president to one more capable of guiding a country without having to control every person or every facet. Getting rid of Tunisia's over-controlling president and electing a more capable one would make indescribable good changes to this right. A third recommendation is to diminish the human rights issue in Tunisia is to provide checks and balances in the government. The problem with the presidency position in Tunisia is that the person who holds it wields too much power. This has made the president more similar to a dictator. If checks and balances are instituted, then this would not be an issue, and laws like those that are restricting the right to freedom of speech and expression would be far less likely to pass the bill stage. Tunisia is a country that has been breaking Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights since its independence in 1956. However, this could be changed if any of these three recommendations above were to be implemented into the government.